Criminal investigation into Ghana's former finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta seems to have hit a major roadblock because the Office of Special Prosecutor and the Attorney General's office are not at addendum when it comes to his extradition. This is a classic case of duplication that I'll get into in future. For now, let's talk about the extradition aspect of this case. Because my name is Senebi Tony, I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about Ghana's international relations. Extradition is a diplomatic action, so it falls under my usual conversation topic. Let's get into it. Let's start with the criminal aspect and then we come into the diplomacy. So Ken Ofori-Atta served as a finance minister in Ghana from 2017 to 2025. And when he left office, the Office of Special Prosecutor started investigations into some government contracts that were signed during this period. 5 of them, according to his office, were questionable, and they wanted Ken Ofori-Atta to answer questions on them. So they sent a request to Ken Ofori-Atta to show up in their office on February 10th, 2025 to answer those questions. Ken Ofori-Atta lawyer responded to the office and told them, well, Ken is not in Ghana. He's in the US seeking medical attention. So when he comes, he will come, Oba or Beba. And they didn't hear back from him until June 2025. They got tired. So in June 2025, the Office of Special Prosecutor issued an Interpol Red Notice. What is that? So Interpol Red Notice is a way of like telling the world that somebody is wanted in your country. So they said Ken Ofori-Atta was a fugitive from justice wanted in Ghana. Usually what this means is that if Ken Ofori-Atta is spotted in a different country, that country can arrest him and Ghana can make extradition arrangement after that. So the Interpol Red Notice doesn't trigger extradition. It can trigger an arrest in that jurisdiction. You understand that? And so this is where we were, and we are in, today is October, let me see the date. Yeah, October 20th. The Deputy Attorney General of Ghana have come out to say they've not been able to arrange for the extradition of Ken Ofori-Atta from the US back to Ghana because they do not have the investigative dossier from the Office of Special Prosecutor. The Office of the Special Prosecutor came out and said, we are not obstructing justice in relation to Ken Ofori-Atta. The Attorney General didn't say they are obstructing justice. They said they've not received the investigative dossier. And what is this investigative dossier and why does the Attorney General's office need it? I'll get into it. But before I do that, let's explain what even extradition is. Extradition, right, is a treaty, which means that it is an agreement. It is an explicit statement between two states that when state A wants somebody for a crime and the person is found out to be in state B would send the person to state A to face prosecution. In a nutshell, or simply put, that is extradition, right? You have to have a relationship with somebody on extradition for it to happen. I'll give you an example. There is a country Ghana doesn't have an extradition relationship with. That is Japan. So if you commit crime in Ghana, you can run to Japan. But I'll tell you something that happened in Japan. In 2020, the CEO of Nissan was wanted for a crime in Japan. Actually, I believe he was arrested for a crime in Japan, and he was undergoing the criminal process in Japan. And then he decided to act a movie. He got two friends of his who are Americans to put him in an audio equipment box. You know, when you attend a concert, those big speakers at the concert, the box those speakers are kept in, yeah. He put himself in the box. His two American friends put him in a private jet, and the private jet was flown from Osaka, Japan to Istanbul, Turkey. And then he was flown from Istanbul, Turkey to Lebanon. As it stands now, the two Americans who helped him escape, they went back to the US, but Japan has an extradition relationship with the US. So the US sent these two Americans back to Japan to be prosecuted, but the guy who ran Carlos Goshen has not been prosecuted. Why? I'll tell you. Carlos Goshen is a Lebanese. Actually, he was born to Lebanese parents in Brazil. So he is Lebanese and Brazilian and also French. I don't know how he is French, but he's French. And of all these three countries, he decided to go to Lebanon. Why? Because Lebanon does not have an extradition relationship with Japan. And even if they did, it won't matter. You know why? Lebanon has a law that if a Lebanese citizen commits a crime outside of Lebanon, he will be prosecuted in Lebanon. He will not be extradited from Lebanon to that country. So double protection for him in Lebanon. He was so comfortable that when he moved to Lebanon from Japan, he called Richard Quest of CNN from the US to come. I think Richard Quest lives in London. From London to come to Lebanon and interview him. And I remember watching that interview on CNN. They were walking on the street. Usually when people are running from justice, they be hiding. He didn't hide. You know why? He's protected, just living in Lebanon. That is the power of extradition, right? But, like I said earlier, Ghana has an extradition relationship with the US. How did we develop that? So, I said historically accurate explanation when I was making my introduction. So, let's get into history. Before Ghana became independent in 1957, Ghana was part of the United Kingdom. Yes. The reason why Ghana was called a colony of the United Kingdom is because Ghana was considered under the dominion of the British Crown. And so, under the authority of the British Crown, the British ambassador to the US signed an extradition agreement called US-UK Extradition Treaty of 1931, which went into effect in 1935. And under that law, if somebody is wanted for a crime under the British Crown and they are living in the US will extradite them and vice versa, right? I keep mispronouncing extradite. Forget about it. Doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying. So when he went to, so that's what happens, right? This was in 1931, before Ghana gained independence. And when Ghana was about to gain independence, we signed a law into effect called Ghana Independence Act 1957, which states that any treaty that was entered on behalf of the Gold Coast by the British Crown before 1957 will apply to Ghana, which means that the US-UK Extradition Treaty applies to Ghana. And Ghana went ahead and reaffirmed this in a law called the Extradition Act of Ghana of 1960. And the law captured that any country Ghana had extradition relationship with before then, it will continue. And went on to explain how extradition process will play out in Ghana, right? And even furthermore, in 1992, in the Constitution of Ghana, there is Article 11, which mentions existing laws as some of the laws of Ghana. So existing laws are laws which were existing in Ghana before 1992, like PNDC Law 111. The reason why if you die interstate in Ghana, PNDC law 111 applies to you is because the constitution says so in Article 11. You understand? Furthermore, in 2024, there was a court case that went all the way to the Supreme Court called Republic versus Kayode. So Kayode and his friends, their names sound Nigerian, were wanted for wire fraud, internet-related fraud in the US. And so a court in the US, a district court in Nebraska, USA, called for their extradition from Ghana because they were living in Ghana to the US to face justice. And that extradition request was presented in Kaneshi District Court, where I used to live. I've been to Kaneshi Court a few times. And these two, Kayode and his friends said, yo, you can't extradite us to the US because we didn't commit any crime in Ghana. And the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court of Ghana said, actually, you can't be extradited from Ghana to the US because the US-UK Extradition Treaty of 1931 is part of the existing laws of Ghana because of Article 11. So there is at least 5 different authorities to establish that Ghana have extradition authority with the US. So why can't Ghana just call Ofori-Atta or the US to send Ofori-Atta to Ghana? This is where it gets even more interesting. So extradition is a diplomatic process. Diplomatic process means that it is a relationship between state to state. So the only person who has authority to enter deals with other countries on behalf of Ghana is the president of Ghana. You know why? The Constitution of Ghana says the president of Ghana is the head of state of Ghana. Head of state is different from head of government, which is a different responsibility, which is different from the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. The job of the head of state of Ghana is... I'm laughing because when I said head of state of Ghana, I remember that people used to make fun of my head because I'm still here time. So the head of state of Ghana represents Ghana in international dealings. But the president of Ghana is one man. He can't do everything. So he has agents to work on his behalf. So the foreign ministry usually deals on behalf of the president with other countries. Right? So in order for Ghana to request Ofori-Atta from the US, we have to do it through the foreign ministry. But the route from Office of Special Prosecutor to the foreign ministry is through the Attorney General. So under the agreement of extradition, for you to be extradited from Ghana to the US or vice versa, you have to establish something called dual criminality. That means that what you are being accused of in Ghana must also be a crime in the US. Let me give you an example of how this will play out. This is not legal advice. It is actually maybe wrong. In Ghana, we have something called Islamic marriage. There are different forms of marriage in Ghana. And under Islamic marriage in Ghana, you can have more than one wife. So if you are planning to have more than one wife, don't do Orthodox marriage, do Islamic or traditional marriage, right? Under US law, there's only one type of marriage, right? Ordinance. So if you get married in the US and you have more than one wife, it is bigamy. It doesn't matter what your religion is. In Ghana, it's not necessarily the case. So if, for example, you are maybe a Muslim in the US and you are accused of bigamy and you got married in the Islamic way and you flee to Ghana and the US want to come to Ghana and ask Ghana to extradite you from Ghana to the US, Ghana can say that what the US is wanting you for is not a crime in Ghana, so they can't send you to the US to face prosecution. You understand? Good. So corruption, which is the issue that Ken Ofori-Atta is alleged to be charged with, he's not yet charged yet, is alleged to have committed, is both a crime in Ghana and the US. So Ghana's Attorney General would have to send a formal request explaining to the US that what Ken Ofori-Atta is wanted for in Ghana is also a crime in the US. That is why the Office of the Attorney General in Ghana wants the investigative dossier so that they can establish the dual criminality to get the US to extradite him. You understand what I'm saying? So, usually, when you are listening to these issues in the news and with politics, people like to talk plenty and make it look like somebody's not doing their job. Maybe somebody's not doing their job. I think the Office of the Special Prosecutor is not doing their job. I think the Office of the Special Prosecutor is a pointless office because of something under public administration called duplication. But in future, another video, I'll deal with the topic of duplication. I just wanted to explain extradition in this video, and I think I have successfully done that. So the reason why Ken Ofori-Atta is not extradited from the US to Ghana is because the leaders of Ghana, according to the Attorney General, has not had a written request yet. And he's saying that is because the Office of the Special Prosecutor have not presented them with their investigative dossier yet. And so I wanted to break it down in the layman language, let everybody understand what we are dealing with, so that when you are hearing the plenty NDC, NPP noise on radio and television, you know that there is a bigger legal issue at play here. All right, law and politics, two different. I don't like politics too much, so usually I don't really like to get into the politics of things on this channel. Occasionally I do because I'm a human being. Every human being is a political animal. So talk to you later. Subscribe to my channel if you're interested in more conversations like this. I love you. Did I just say that?